Hi, welcome to this roundtable from the European Leaders Learning Community. We haven't actually put out one of these for a while, but I felt this topic was so important that we really needed to get these experts in this area, um, just to give us another taste of the topic of the month, which is relational fundraising. And I'm excited that we were able to have Juan and Mombo Galloway all the way from Hawaii, and
Aloha.
Terry is coming from Holland. And I'm actually here my name is Belinda Chaplin, if you don't know who I am, and I'm here in Bosnia and Herzegovina. I'm going to ask them each just to introduce themselves and maybe say a little bit about what they've done in this area of relational fundraising. So off to you, Juan.
Hi, I'm Juan, and my wife Mombo and I are serving here at YWAM Kona. But like Terry, we travel a lot and teach all over the world. And this is one of the many topics we teach on, which is partnership development, ministry partner development. And our background quickly is we were urban missionaries in New York City area for 18 years. And so we had to raise funds and we learned the hard way. We had no training. So now we are trying to take what we learned and that worked and pass it on to all our family in YWAM because we really want them to win.
And our heart is healthy leadership in general, relationally healthy leadership, emotionally, spiritually, and financially.
Yes.
That's great. And you, Terry?
Yep, I've been a YWAMer for 42 years now and raising support for 42 years. The first 20 years, I call my mana years. We struggled. We did a lot of struggling. We almost gave up at one point and thought, if this is, I don't think God wants us to be in debt and in despair all the time. So maybe he's telling us to go home. But that whole process actually is what led me into teaching this and getting a passion to teach others because of almost failing. And I know a lot of not only YWAMers, other missionaries too struggle. And so I felt like I've learned an awful lot over these years, and I just want to pass it on because I believe that we should be equipping our staff so that they're ready to enter missions and not have to go through years of struggle and write their own books, but I'll write the book for them and, and hopefully they can learn from all my mistakes. Yay.
Exactly. Yeah, so you mentioned writing a book there, Terry. What do you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, I've the book I'm writing is only the first half of my training. And it's not the how-tos, it's all about the heart issues.
Hmm.
And what do you actually believe about yourself? Do you think that you're worthy to be supported? Do you feel like it's just a religious way of begging? Uh, what are your thoughts and what are your feelings? And many of us push those down and we don't admit them. We don't maybe even realize that we have them. So I found for myself as well as many others that if we can identify those things and deal with them spiritually, bring them before God, repent of believing that I'm a beggar, believing that I'm a burden, believing I'm not worthy, then we can move into a whole new place of truth and live out of truth and life and what God has said. So the title of the book is going to be Beggar, Burden, or Blessing:
Wow.
Overcoming Our Greatest Obstacles in Raising Support. And it will be like a workbook. I will lead people through the process of identifying the lies they believe so that they can repent and they can move out of that area and take the truth of what God says and let it become what leads them.
That's brilliant. Oh, so good, so good. Now, I actually listened to somebody's really wonderful podcast about fundraising or ministry partner development, as we like to try and call it. Um, Maybe you can tell us a little bit more about that one and Mambo. What is the
Yes,
name of
well,
your podcast and where can you find it?
yeah. So we have a podcast called The Sweet Life of Missionary Partnership. And what we did is we we used to take our mission-based staff and send them away to a boot camp of sorts to learn how to fundraise. And it was thousands of dollars for them to fly, stay in the hotel, 8 in the morning till 8 at night, training. And then when they'd get back and work on it constantly, and it was like such a huge time commitment. So what we did is we took the books that they use there and around the world, like 5 of the top books on fundraising, missionary partnership development, the ones that other organizations have used. And then we went through all of it and combed through it and took everything that was YWAM centric, YWAM values. Lauren and Darlene Cunningham are yes and amen on these things. And then we took all of those in the biblical concepts and we brought it all down, 40, 100 hours of training, hundreds of hours of reading, and brought it down to 8-hour podcast. So that way you listen there's a topic for each podcast, each hour, boom, 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 with some homework involved to do and action steps. And then of course we make all of the resources and all the books and all the information available online for free. So that way they can utilize it.
Yeah, and Terry Sherman is one of our best teachers on that podcast, by the way.
She is.
It's excellent. And there are many people, YWAMers featured from around the world who share how they were able to get fully funded in their particular culture. And many of them were students of Terry's.
That's right.
So that's it's like giving not just the American perspective, but
yeah,
the
we
broad
have
perspective.
South America represented in Cartagena, Colombia. We have South Korea represented, Africa represented, Europe, all around the world, how YWAMers have been able to get fully funded as missionaries and be able to stay on the field, because money should not be a reason why we quit, ever.
Right. Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah, and you keep mentioning Terry's course, and I've heard a rumor that it's somewhere online, maybe, Terry?
Oh, yes, you've heard good rumors. Yep, relationalfundraising.com will lead you to the course and tell you about it, but it's been live since 2015, and it's free, and you just walk through it. I take you step by step. It's exactly the same thing I do in a live workshop, because I do give live workshops, not only in our base twice a year, but I get invitations to many places around the world to come and give a live in-person workshop. I just finished one in Armenia. And I was so excited because one of my main goals is to get people who want to pass it on and to invest in them so that I don't have to go back. I don't want to go back to Armenia. I want them to take it and run with it and use it. And the guy that contacted me did my online course. As a result, he contacted me at the end and he said, "Could I teach this to my staff?" And I said, "Well, you better." We had a really great connection, and I'll stay connected. So the online course is there for those who can't attend a live workshop. The book will come soon. And yeah, my real prayer is I want to see it multiplied. Many more YWAMers teaching this topic. There's just too few of us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we here in Kona, The Sweet Life of Missionary Partnership, which is the name of our podcast. And we had someone teach it with us because we're constantly trying to get other people to teach it. And we say, everyone who takes our course, we're like, take all the slides, take all the notes, take it all, and please share it with your staff, because it'll help so much to eliminate staff turnover if people training, which is a benefit to everybody, right?
Yeah.
No,
We really need to see this in YWAM. It's interesting because even this month, I wrote that article for the ELLC online. I gave I said, does this, ring a bell with anybody? Are you interested to want to train your own staff, learn how to train your own staff? I gave my email. Nobody emailed me. Nobody. I'm thinking, isn't there anybody out there who has a heart to teach this?
Well, maybe, hopefully this video will also get to more people, and then they can know that they can contact you, Terry, if they ever wanted people. That's great. And you guys as well, actually.
Yeah. That's a major prayer point.
I think it is. And I think there's a lot of places where it's not really emphasized as much the need to really raise your support well in a way that is beneficial. Not, I mean, when you talk about fundraising, it's like a different concept than ministry partner development. You know, when you're just looking at the money and you want the money, it's completely different. Okay, well, I'm not the expert in this area, so maybe one of you could explain the difference between fundraising and ministry partner development. Terry, would you like to?
Yeah, I can. I mean, often when we talk about fundraising and people use that word, they're often referring to a one-time thing that they need. Maybe it's outreach money, or they need to buy a car, or whatever it is. It's a one-time expense, but it's a big lump that they don't have. So they're going to fundraise for it. And there's many wonderful, legitimate ways to fundraise. And you know, churches do a lot of fundraising and have all kinds of fundraising drives for kids to go to summer camp or church camp, or all that's fine and good. But ministry partner development is for long-term sustainable mission work, full-time work. So if you're going to actually be a career missionary, which is what we all are, we're in this it's our career for the rest of our lives. And we have to create our own salary. So we do that through a team of partners, and we need to develop that team and create it ourselves. So ministry partner development is all about the whole context of inviting people to join you, the whole staying with you for however many years, and then also gaining new people along the way, because people will always drop off. And so it's a whole lifestyle, actually. It's a way of life. It's a way of that we choose. We all choose it, don't we? I've
It was
chosen.
one of YWAM's values to actually value 16 to actually live in this way.
Yeah.
And I know you, Juan, you're quite an expert on the values. Maybe share from like a YWAM's perspective, why do we do it this way? Why do we need to have these ministry partners rather than just getting like working on the side?
Yeah, well, yeah, value number 16 is depend on God. And then it goes into context. What does that mean? Depend on God for finances. And primarily that comes through his people. And that's true. That's not just a YWAM value, it's a biblical value. I fundraised for many years. Some people think that's a bad word, fundraising. They'd rather say fundraising, or they'd rather say partnership development. To me, it's a generic term, but we are, as Terry's ministry is called, relational fundraising. This is about relationship. And that's the core of the biblical model. Is Paul, you know, told the new churches, he's like, you're going to outfit me and Apollos and, you know, these different people, because that's what we're created to do as a team. We're partnering together to spread the gospel. And so you're going to outfit us. You're going to send us with whatever we need, provide the needs. And so that's, if we don't have that, we're cut off from the body. And that's just not going to be as successful as when we are sent, because that's what scripture says do. How are they going to hear, right? Unless there's a preacher. How's that preacher going to go unless they are sent? So there's that key, you know, person in the background who is sending us, praying for us, funding us, making sure we've got what we need to, you know, get the job done.
And a big part of that actually is where their money is, their heart will be also. So we're giving people a heart for missions who would not have a heart for missions.
So true.
Exactly.
And so I think we forget that. We think we're getting money for ourselves. We're not. They're giving money to God, and they're getting a heart for missions. So it's a noble task.
Yeah, so good.
Exactly. I think when I was a teenager, so in South Africa we have rand, and I gave like 2 rand, which is probably like not even like 1 cent in the US. But I would give this 2 rand every month to our missionaries, because, and it was just something that I was like, I want to do this. I mean, it was like, that was my tithe. I mean, that's how much, you know, I would get. So I still remember, I really believe that was one of the reasons, like later on, that I became a missionary, because I had grown up kind of having that heart for missions, as you said. One thing that you've said on your podcast that really like jumped out to me was when you're asking people for money, like people want to give anyway, and they often give to charities. So actually giving them that opportunity to give to something that they would actually, you know, that they're connected to rather, is like it's a great opportunity for them. And that was just such a great like light bulb moment for me, where I could understand, okay, this is not just about how, you know, I can get money, but actually how they could give to something that they really are wanting to invest in. And that's really something. Are there anything other sort of ideas like that where you know, fundraising and friend raising are slightly different things? Maybe the Galloways again.
Well, you know, the key word is, you know, I think that partnership word, it just says more. It's a better descriptor than fundraising, which says money in the title, right? It's just raising money. But we're trying to actually enrich the lives of those that give, because they get, whenever we give of our time, our talent, our treasure to God, we receive back so much more. So we're not taking from people, we're enriching their lives, because if we do it right, if we actually give reports and tell them, here's what happened because you gave and you prayed, these lives were touched and changed. And then they understand now, I'm making a difference. So my money isn't just about me and my family. I'm giving to something eternal. And I think that's so much more fulfilling. We love to give. You know, it's a joy to give, right? That's why we're here on earth, is to give our lives and our money. So it's actually, we're leading them into a bigger blessing.
That's exactly right.
Amen.
Terry, maybe you could answer this question. What is better? Is it better if like individuals are supporting you, or just like churches? Or is it the same? Does it matter?
Let's put it this way. I think the more people we have on our team, the better. And individuals are wonderful to have on our team, and we can have as many as we want, because people will be giving all different amounts. Some can only give a small amount, others can give others. But and some people have many connections with churches. I have to, Aunt Ann and I didn't have lots of church connections. And early on, way back in the 80s, we thought maybe, okay, we need to go to all these friends' churches and try to get their churches on board. And we started the process, but we just didn't get very far. It was so much energy and time and cost, and trying to build relationship at all these different places where we didn't have any. And we realized, you know what, let's just stick with the people we know and really focus on that and do a good job with those that we know. So we've only ever had, well, actually, we didn't even have our own church support us, because that was against their policy for 30 some years. So really, we've only ever had a team of individual partners. So it kind of will depend on your situation. If you have lots of connections in churches, that's great. But I would say major on individuals, because the churches usually will give a larger lump. And then if they say, oh, sorry, we got to stop because our focus has changed, then suddenly you're just limping along and handicapped because that huge chunk is gone. And it's much better healthier to have smaller, much more middle range amounts over, I mean, again, there'll be a huge difference, but that it's just healthier, I believe. And that kept us on the mission field. Many people from our church supported us, but the church itself didn't. But that's okay.
Do you guys have anything to add to that?
We agree.
Yeah, it's true. It's harder to get a church on board because there's a lot of demand out there, and they say, well, we're already supporting 50 missionaries and we're supporting them all for $20 a month, usually something like that. But on the other hand, what we have seen is now churches, as a trend in America at least, is they're getting more focused. They don't like this broad thing where they don't even know they're on a missionary. So they're cutting it down to fewer, but giving more. And that's a great trend, I think, because we want to have a relationship with the church. And we believe that we can serve the church if we're in town. We share about missions. We've had people join missions in YWAM because we spoke at the church that was partnering with us. So we want to be a bridge from the church to the mission field. And so that's the positive that we give. It takes longer to get a church on your team because of the bureaucracy,
Usually
frankly.
3 to 5 years is what you can figure with trying to get a church on board. But once they're on board, many times, especially if it's an older denominational church, they may stay on board till you're dead, which is helpful. But most people, they shouldn't stick to churches trying to fundraise because it's a waste of their time and energy when they can get individuals. I agree with Terry. She's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean, I just look at my situation. I have my home church is, I mean, I grew up in the church. I was 8 when we joined it, and but I have a lot of supporters. In fact, the majority of my supporters, probably 90% of them, were either in that church previously or in that church now. So even like finding supporters in churches, like when you are able to share, and it's not just about going to each person individually, but you can actually use the church as a place to meet people and get to know them, and through that they start wanting to give to you, or you could ask them. So yeah, I realize that now, that the church has been a main sort of part of where I've found my supporters. But the church itself actually, at one stage, it wasn't supporting me at all. And I said to them, I mean, I was joking. I said, well, you say that I'm your missionary, but you're not giving me any money. Like, it would be good. And so they started giving me some money as well. So, but I do get a lot of my individual supporters through the church. But yeah, you've all mentioned, like in the beginning in your introductions, about how like I think Terry especially, about making mistakes in fundraising, and that's led you to where you are now. So maybe you could add some things, like some specific things that you've done, or maybe you see people doing that are just the wrong way to go around fundraising. We could
Wow.
start with Galloways. Sorry?
Go on, go. Oh, did you say
Okay. Well, yeah. So unfortunately, a lot of people quit because they say, well, I tried fundraising, I tried building a team, and it didn't work. But then what did you do? And it wasn't very good.
So one of the mistakes, very common, that we see is they put a post on Facebook like, hey, if you want to hear about what I'm doing, hit me up, just like to everybody, or like just making a general to everyone, or sending something general out to everyone that's not personal, is such a mistake because it doesn't work anymore. And the methods that worked pre-COVID don't work post-COVID. Everything needs to be very personal, very face-to-face, very relational. And I think it's a shame when I had someone calling me and crying yesterday because they went out and they sent a text out to 100 people. Just, hey, you want to support me as a missionary? And all their photos online are of them having fun at the beach. Like, I know this person, I know they did ministry all the time, and they were only at the beach once a week for maybe a couple hours, but all they saw online was, hey, I'm having fun at the beach. Then they're asking people for money. And of course they got like almost all no's because they weren't trained. And so, yeah, it's important that you don't do a big shout out to everybody at once and then blow out of the water all your connections all at once with no training.
Yeah, I agree.
There's a verse that says, hope deferred makes the heart grow sick. And when people, they ask in a way that it doesn't connect with people's hearts, it doesn't feel right, doesn't sound right, then they get a rejection. And then they're like, see, it doesn't work. It's not for me. God doesn't want me to be a missionary. All these conclusions come when really, if they had done a good job, because they got some training on sharing the heart behind the mission, because people give to vision, not to need. And so, if the vision is the Great Commission, who doesn't love that?
And let's say you want to lead someone to Jesus. Are you going to just put up on Facebook, like, who wants to get saved? Message me. It's the same. Leading someone to Jesus, it's one-on-one, it's personal,
Yes.
It's explaining, it's talking, it's showing the heart of God. And so you're sharing the heart of missions.
It's ministry.
Do it that way.
It should be ministry.
But let's hear what Terry has to say.
Yes, Terry.
Yeah, exactly. I'll say one of the big mistakes we made the first 20 years was not going individually face to face to invite people. We would share the vision, but then that was it. We wouldn't come up, follow up with, would you be willing to pray about joining our team now that you've heard the vision? It was always okay. And that was because of a lie I believed, that I was burdening people. that to invite them to give their money to us was putting a burden on them. That was deep down inside of me, and I didn't even know it. So for all those years, because that was the thought inside, we didn't directly ask. And I believe we lost out on a lot of potential partners because of that. When I finally learned about doing it the right way and doing it with freedom in my heart, to invite people, then we saw a change. We saw people, you're inviting me to join your team. It's not just something for everybody, but you actually want me to be part of your team. And it was like, yeah, would you be willing to pray about that? Oh, well, yeah, because we've been following you guys for 20 years, but we thought everything was fine. But yeah, no, it wasn't. So that was big mistake number one. And then another time, a big mistake I made with a friend who told me she wanted to support us. In the very beginning, she told me, I want to support you. And I thought, oh, okay, well, here's the information, how you can do it. And then I just, again, out of not wanting to go get too detailed about money, I just left it all with her. Well, every furlough, every time I'd go back, she would keep telling me, I want to support you, but she never did. And I kept saying, here's how you do it. And finally, 20 years down the road, I realized, after I had gotten some training and some freedom in my heart, I realized, oh, I've never even asked her how much she would consider. And so when I asked her that, she that became the point that was her hang up. She could not decide how much. And because of that, she never did. She felt like she'd be disappointing us. It wouldn't be enough. And so she never made the step. And finally, when I realized what was going on, then I was able to actually disciple her in that and say, hey, it doesn't really matter how much. It's what God shows you and what you're able to do. And then that became a revelation for her. So through that, we discovered some great things together. But boy, it took 20 years for me to realize, hey, don't be afraid to ask people to decide how much and how long. Let's get specific, because it really helps people to, into action. People get active then, instead of, oh, I don't know, so I won't make a decision.
That's so good, Terry. And I have one more thing. There's so many mistakes people make. Sorry. But having a click and give option, because people today give differently. No one's writing checks anymore. So there needs multiple click and give, if it's Venmo or PayPal or whatever is in your country, or online, or having a website, just ways people can click within 3 clicks and give. We were training a group in Samoa about this, and they said, oh yeah, just give through Western Union. In my head, I thought, oh, my grandparents used Western Union, and they'd be 110 right now, by the way. And so I didn't even know what that meant. But then I went in to actually do it, and I realized, hey, this is 3 clicks. This is so easy and fun. But they didn't say that. They didn't say, hey, you can give in Western Union. It's a website, and you just click, you're done. If they would have told me that, I would have given like that minute. But it took me a year to give, because I was like, oh, Western Union, I don't even know what that is. So to make it simple and communicate how simple it is really important today.
Yeah.
And actually, like, I found that it's sad to say this, but like tax deductible gifts and things that kind of, especially in the US, I think it's very important, like having a way, if you can possibly, to give that people can give you and get the tax deduction off that. I get through an organization in England that actually gives the person the tax as well. And that becomes a little bit of a selling point to, like, hey, if you support me, you don't actually just give me that money, but you get the money, your tax money comes to me as well. So, and it's 25%, it's not a small amount. So, someone who's giving me £40 a month is actually giving you £50 a month. So
Yeah,
just like little ways like that, like financial people would be like, oh, actually, that's quite a good way to do it. So yeah, that's very important. Exactly. I think you've touched on a couple of things, but maybe we can also talk about what works. What are some successful ways? We've talked a little bit about a few ideas, but maybe there's some more out there. We can start with the Galloways this time.
Well, what we've discovered is so much of this is about communication, and personal and professional, so really being thoughtful about what are we communicating to people out there? What is our brand, if you want to put it that way? Because if, what we're discovering now is we have gotten much better on a weekly basis at posting just what we're doing in ministry. That's all we do. We just tell, here's who we're teaching, here's a young one we're discipling, whatever it is. And so that by the time, if we do that for a year, then when we finally meet with someone who's actually on social media, they go, oh, I've been following you. I know you did this and this and this. So there's no convincing, there's no explaining. They actually got it. And they're ready now to join the team because they find that it's of great value to them, right? And so doing a good job at communicating.
And if you're in a closed country, there's a way to do that, of course, that is more private, but still effective.
Yeah, there's, I think it's called Stello. It's an encrypted, mass email system, which is great so that you can safely, from a closed country, share everything via email, and they have to, decrypt it. But I think the personal approach really is the most important, and Terry said that, and it's a heart to heart. And even when people say no, we've had a great heart to heart. We don't feel bad about it. We always pray for people at the end of our appointments, and most of them are Zoom.
And we send thank yous to those who even say no. Thank you so much for meeting with us.
Absolutely.
Because no becomes a yes later, at least half the time.
Wow. That's good
Yep.
advice. That's good.
Yeah. I'll share something that we discovered really worked well. Was a time when we realized, okay, we're going to need to raise more monthly support, because that was when we knew Ed and I were going to be both traveling a lot, and we just couldn't take it out of our monthly, because then we go into debt. So we thought, okay, we got to raise a lot more. How are we going to do this? And we prayed. So number one, always go to God. Say, Lord, we're up against the wall again. What do we do? Because he's responsible to provide for us. So it's like, okay, Daddy, show us what's our role and what do you want? And he led us at that stage to pray about starting a new team called our Go Team. And it's people who give once a month, not once a month, once a year, a large lump instead of monthly, more smaller amounts. So they became our annual Go Team givers. And the main purpose was to fund us to travel. And so we shared the vision, but all the people that God spoke to us to ask, they were all across the ocean. We were in Holland, they were in America. We couldn't go to America and see them face to face. This was back in 2009. So Zoom wasn't really around. Anyway, I didn't even know if any of those people had Skype or anything like that. So I thought, how am I going to do this? Thought, call on the phone. So, but the best way to do a long distance connection and make it personal is to either talk to people, and now we have these amazing ways to do it that we didn't have back then. But we wrote a letter. We wrote a vision letter and made it beautiful. And I called and I asked people, can I send you our vision letter? I'm calling to ask your permission. And it's going to tell you about a new season of ministry that Ed and I are entering. And we're going to be sharing in the letter with you about how you can join us in an annual way. But I didn't want to just send it to you. I wanted to get your permission. Is that okay with you? And what I realized was we have to honor people. We really need to not assume that everybody wants to give money to us. No, they don't. But some people will because of relationship and because we honor them and we don't take them for granted. So I learned that. I learned it just by doing it. I didn't even know how it would work out. But we had the best conversations with people after they said, yeah, send the letter. So I sent them a hard copy, but I also sent them a digital copy. And then I said, I'll get back to you in about 2 weeks, okay, to find out what you're thinking. And they said, okay, that's fine. So that's how we started our Go team and how we keep it going today and how we keep going on all those expensive flights around the world. Thank you, Jesus. But you have to personalize it. You can't just send a letter in the mail and say, "Oh Lord, let everybody answer."
Exactly. Well, I'm really sorry, but we are running out of time. I know
Uh-oh.
I could go on for hours talking to you guys because it's just so wonderful. And I wanted to point out, Terry shared about how they're traveling all over the place, and Ada's actually right now where?
Burkina Faso
Faso. So thank you,
in
Ed, for
Africa.
serving in Burkina Faso at the moment. But yeah, maybe one last short thought on this topic that you want to, that's on your heart still to share. We can start with you, Terry, if you've got something.
Yeah, maybe you were maybe going to ask it, but you didn't. But I just want to say, don't underestimate when, those of you who've been around doing this for many years and you can't think of anybody else to ask anymore. This is a big problem for many of us. I've run out of people to ask. Then really go and it's what we call referrals. Go to the people that already partner with you and intentionally ask them one by one, do you know someone or maybe several people who might be interested in what we do and the ministry we're part of? Could you connect us with them? So, when you fish the pool and it's empty or everybody's already supporting you, then go to the next step and don't just think, oh, there is nobody else. You would be amazed at how many others would be out there that would want to partner with you through someone else who already knows you, connecting you. So
Yeah.
parting thought.
Mombo and Juan, yeah.
You want to go first?
Yeah,
Okay.
you end because you're such a good speaker. You can bring it home.
Sure, yeah.
So I was gonna say, to piggyback on Terry, if you've been in the movement for a long time, ask younger people. You know a lot of young people if you're in Youth with a Mission, and young people give. So a lot of older people in the movement had older people who died. So ask younger people. We have a lot of younger partners. And then the one thing I want to say is we have over 70 monthly partners, and we got 100% of our monthly partnership through Zoom, because pre-COVID, nobody could Zoom. Post-COVID, everybody Zooms. Whoop, whoop, that's great. So we literally, because we've been in mission for over 30 years, we can text people directly. I do encourage the letter, but if you've been in missions for a while, you can text people for a Zoom meeting and have a face-to-face sharing what God's doing. Or if we have a yearly giver who gives once a year, we have some of those. We do a because you gave meeting at the end of the year and then ask them to give again. And so these are things that you can do. You don't have to go home and travel around and meet everybody face to face. You can actually do all your meetings via Zoom if you want. That's what we did, and it worked. Within 3 months, we were fully funded.
Yeah, and I think James said it's a lifestyle, and I couldn't agree more. YWAMers typically, they're just fundraising trip by trip, school by school, event by event, and then they're always broke again. And so building the monthly team and putting it in the budget, I'm going to be traveling. I have a school, whatever it is they need. I need a car. Put it in the budget and fundraise the budget, right? And if people ask for it, yeah, sure, I'll tell you exactly where it's going, and that shows a lot of responsibility that they respect.
And then bump ups.
Yeah, the last thing I was going to say, I was in the same as you, is bump ups. If people have been partnering with you already for at least a year or 2 years, it's completely appropriate. It's the lowest hanging fruit, actually. They already like you. They're already giving. They believe in missions, is to come back to them and say, well, I'm going to be honest, our budget has increased, probably like yours and everyone else's, and because of whatever, airfare or cost of living. And I want to see if you'd, consider increasing what you're giving by 25% or 40%, or, pray about that amount. And I'm telling you that if you've done a good job in communicating along the way, they're happy to do it. So that's my last little piece of advice.
That's great. That's fantastic. Thank you, guys. I really wish we could talk for another hour. We might have to do another one of these sometime. Who knows? But yeah, thank you so much for sharing. And you can find the resources on the ELLC website, where they've written articles and done a talk as well. So check those out. We did have one last resource on this month, which was from Lynn Green, and we asked him to talk about how to fundraise for projects. And he actually, you know what he said? He said basically do it through people. So I think this is a very good piece of advice from everyone in the world of ministry partner development fundraising, relational fundraising. So thank you so much, guys, and enjoy the rest of your day there in Hawaii. Terry and I are heading off to bed now, so thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Till next time.